Did anybody own a home during the recession at all? Okay. And was it the worst possible thing you ever did in your entire life? No? Yes? No? Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of us went through negative experiences and such, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about who I am. I'm not a teacher. I am a real estate broker. I know they wrote down as a developer. That's one of the things I do, but I'm actually a real estate broker. I help people buy and sell properties. This is the main thing that I do. And so I started doing that. A little bit of my history is that when I was 21 years old, my girlfriend's uncle had a seminar called Success Institute. And it was a real estate seminar, so I got to go for free. I was a carpenter at the time. And so I went there, and the main thing that it taught me is not how to buy properties, no money down. The main thing it taught me is how to set goals. And that is a huge part of what I do in my business life, in my spiritual life, in my family life, is setting goals. And just by writing down a goal, you have a 60% better chance to achieve it just simply by taking it out of words and writing it down, putting it down and on paper. And what I mean by goals is I'm not talking about wish list or anything like that. I'm talking about realistic goals, things that you want to accomplish in your life. Today we're going to talk about financial or real estate goals. And so you should have short-term, you should have mid-term, and you should have long-term goals on the things that you want to do. It is interesting, let's say that you have a goal. It shouldn't be a general one, but a lot of guys will say, okay, I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 25 years old. And that's cool. You can write that down, and then you have to have some type of a process of, okay, what's my small-term goals in order to accomplish that? And if you want to be a millionaire by the time you're 25 years old, and you set a goal to be a fryer at McDonald's, those two things aren't lining up. You see what I'm saying? Okay. And so that's why you have to be realistic on what you really want and how you're going to achieve that. All right. So I wrote down some goals, and for my first real estate experience, I was 21 years old, and I bought a house. It was on Las Cochas in Lakeside. Okay, I didn't have a lot of money to put down, so I purchased it through an FHA loan. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. It was $60,000. So I've been doing this for 36 years. And I started when I was 14, so do the math. $60,000. Now, I think you were talking about how expensive everything is today. Trust me, back in 1978, $60,000 was everything. I had to put $2,100 down. Terrible, right? But I want you to know the mentality is back then it was the exact same thing as what it is today. Impossible. It was impossible for me to do. But I had to have my girlfriend co-sign with me in order to purchase the property. Okay? So you got to figure out a way to put things together. You have a goal, figuring out how to put it together. Since I purchased at FHA, you have to have a certain level condition of the home. Well, this home needed a roof. The sellers had to put a roof on it, but they really didn't have the money. So my buddies and I got together, and it was the first time I ever did put a roof on a house. I didn't know how to do it, but we did it, and that was part of my down payment, so we made it work. Okay? So you can kind of see how we accomplished those things. Now, it was interesting because for the older people in here, do you remember the rains of 1978 and 79? It rained so much that water came over El Cap Reservoir and also San Vicente Reservoir at the same time. It flooded, and where it came down is right down through Las Cochas. And so the home that I purchased, it was 8 months later, actually flooded. It was a conventional flooring up off the ground, but it was 2 feet of water that filled up the entire valley there. So the good thing about it is it killed all my gophers. Gophers. And so it was interesting. So I, of course, rented out a room because, I had a payment of $682. So I had to figure out a way in order to make that payment. Now, I know we're laughing here, but it's the same thing today when we're trying to figure out what our payment's going to be. It seems impossible. It was the same thing back then. I want you to know that I think I owned that home for 2 years, maybe 3, and I sold it for $80,000. Now, if you think about it, that's 33% increase in, it was about 2.5 years. And I was on my way, okay? So the reason why I share that with you is because it shows you the experience I started out when I was young, okay? And then, I moved. How much? 70. What part of Lakeside did you get? Oh, right through. Was it your roofing company where the building was? Yeah. The Security Pacific, all the road there went out. I remember there was a big old gully that it created and all that. Yes. And the Army Corps of Engineers came in and have a big ditch that goes through Las Cochas now, so it's not, So anyway, so if you think about it, it was a negative experience. Positive, I bought the property. Negative, something happened. And by the way, insurance is wonderful. I have never been involved with something negative that happened, that insurance got involved, that I did not become whole or make money on it. Insurance came and I had cracked concrete beforehand, and after the flood, I had a little more concrete that was cracked, just for the driveway and stuff like that. And so we put all new in. It was a wonderful thing, good experience. So, as Christians, should we be out there investing in real estate to make a profit? Okay. Should we own our homes or should we rent from others? I mean, what's the godly perspective on it? Okay. All right. And this is a question and answer. You can speak up anytime you like. Remember that this is just an open forum. If you have a question, if I say something weird or something like that, ask for me to clarify, because sometimes I do that. So as Christians, we're to take dominion over the earth, right? Okay. And I was trying to think of some scriptures, and I thought about the prayer of Jabez. I remember, was it 5 years ago? Everybody was reading that book and going through. And let me see if I remember it. Oh, Lord, this is the Jabez praying. Oh, Lord, will you bless me indeed? Will you enlarge my territory? Okay. And what's enlarging our territory? Land. In a financial perspective, more land, more buildings, more. And remember that the more that God gives us, the more responsibility we have to take care of that, right? God's very, very clear that we should be good stewards of the things that we're put in charge of. It reminds me of the parable of the talents. Okay, the master, being God, talks about how he gave one servant. So we all have our lot in life, right? We were just listening to Nagy, or David Joseph. His Egyptian name is Nagy. I had the opportunity to go to Egypt with him 10 years ago or so. He's a famous man in Egypt. It's everybody knows him. As we went around, the government officials know him, the police know him, and everyone has their lot in life. Diaz, I had the opportunity to go there with Diaz, and so it was an eye-opening experience for me. But we are born here in the United States, so our lot is that, or the United States or Mexico or wherever we're actually from, but we live in the United States now, and that's where God has put us, okay? So in the talents of the parable of the talents, there you go, it talks about God chose, for some reason, to give one of the servants 5 talents, right? He also chose to give another one 2 talents, and another one he chose to give 1 talent. Why? Well, I don't know. He's God. He's the one who makes those, those decisions and does it. It wasn't the capabilities. Well, and as God looks at it, he knows our future, but he's the one who decides to do those things. Okay? But what was his requirement for his servants, being us? Right. For us to go do things and multiply with it. So the person with 5, the servant with 5, he goes out and multiplies it with 5 more. The servant with 2 multiplies it with 2 more. The servant with 1 decides that the spirit of timidity was there. He had fear, buried the talent. And when the master comes back, when God comes back, he says, the person with the 5 you did great, I'm going to give you more. Person with 2 talents, you did great, multiplied it, I'm going to give you more. The one with the 1 talent decided to hide it and blamed God for it. You're a mean person. You're very, very difficult. And so what did God do with it? Took it from the person who had 1, who needed it the most, right? Decided to take it from him and gave it to the one with 5. Now, when I look at this, I'm going, okay, no matter what we have, 5, 2, or 1, what God is requiring us to do is to multiply. Do something with what God has given you, right? Okay? And so if that comes from God, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to share with you different ideas in the real estate aspect. By the way, that parable also talks about our spiritual growth too, the things that God has given us in the way of our talents and our spiritual gifts that we might have, the family that he has put us into, so on and so forth. So let me see. So we want to be good stewards of what God put us in charge of. So with a little advice from Proverbs, which says, many advisors is a sure victory, we're going to talk about real estate. Okay? So, is it a good time to buy? Yes. Is it a good time to sell? Is it a good time to move to Arizona? Yeah. Ever? Good. So, interest rates are pretty low right now. Okay, so in purchasing real estate, we have an economy right now that the government has been holding interest rates down, and it's an interesting thing how when we went through the recession, the government actually got us into a recession by making it very easy for anyone to purchase property. That's how we got in trouble. You didn't have to go qualify for a piece of property to buy it. All you had to do is write down that you qualified for it, because for some reason there wasn't any verification that was needed. So you just wrote down that you made a certain amount of money, and then all of a sudden they gave you a loan to do that. So it got pretty crazy out there. And one piece of advice I have for you is every time, I've been through 3 recessions. So we go through 3 cycles where they go up and then we come back down, they go up. But there's always a cycle that goes up, comes back maybe 50%, goes back up, goes back 50% and goes. The reason why the one that was in 2008 lasted so long is because government artificially was letting people purchase. And the more properties that people were able to purchase, the more people were able to sell properties at a higher price. It was a bigger fool theory. Bigger fool theory meaning that, hey, I'm a fool for purchasing this house for this amount of money, but there's going to be a bigger fool than me in a couple of years who's going to buy it from me, and now I'm going to make a profit on it. So the government also was setting it up so we could get first and seconds. You were basically getting into properties for almost no money down. Okay, it was a drunken sailor. You can go out and purchase whatever you want. All you had is this payment. But the thing is if you had a high payment, you just continued making that payment, and the property's going to go up in value. So it didn't matter what you were paying on a monthly basis. You're going to sell it for more sometime in the future. And that was a mentality that everybody had, including Christians. Okay, so that being said, of course, it crashed. Another thing that went negative on that time was that we were getting adjustable rate mortgages, which got you into a property on your payment being fairly cheap, okay, so that you had an interest rate that would start you out at 1 or 2%. So your payment was really low, but the day cometh when it just backs up, and all of a sudden you're in a negative situation that you're making a payment that's a lot higher than what it would have been if it was a fixed rate, okay? So back to the interest rates of today. The government is holding down the interest rates, trying to stimulate the economy. It's a great time to get a loan on the basis of interest rates, okay? We're at 3.5% versus, and that's for a 30-year fix. That gives you a lot more buying power in today's economy, okay? So the reason why I wanted to say that 3.5% is I'm going to give you a little example. There's some old guys and young guys in here. Who's my youngest guy? Wrong. Okay, how old? What year are you born in? Quick. 93? I don't know if I can go to 93. Oh, yeah, I do. 1993. Not bad, 7.5% for a 30-year fixed. Any old guys in here? Al, what year were you born? Well, I don't. The what? 1927? Sorry, I don't have that. I do have back in 1944, it was 4%. Historical 4%. They thought they would never see that again. And how many years ago is that? 66, 70, that's 80, almost 80 years ago. Okay, so we're back to 3.5%. So when I first bought the property, it was 1978, so it was only 9% when I purchased my first house. Okay, I got into real estate in 1980. So now you know. So I've been doing it for 36 years, so 1980. And I got into, after I purchased that property and it was a good deal, so on and so forth, I'm thinking, this is what I'm going to do for a living. I got into the market, and it was a terrible market. Jimmy Carter we had all kinds of inflation going on, and I didn't know these things because I was a young kid. But there was all kinds of inflations going on, and Ronald Reagan came in 1980, and so what he had to do is he had to raise interest rates to stop the inflation. So I get into a real estate market. I'm helping people buy and sell properties. I'm 23 years old. What do I know? All I knew is I set goals, and I had a positive attitude. And I sold a lot of properties. I was with Century 21, and I was their top producer in the first year when I started. And the reason why I say that with all humility is because I really didn't know we were in a bad market. All the other agents that I was with in that entire time, they're all going, oh, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. Interest rates are high, it's terrible. And all I knew is I got involved, and I had a good attitude. Got hooked up with lenders, and we were selling. There's a lot of foreclosures, selling properties, and so on and so forth. Okay, so a little history lesson is that when you're getting ready to buy some property, you probably shouldn't go talk. You should get some good information. Remember, Proverbs talks about good advice. Many advisors is for a sure victory. Okay. I'm going to talk about Uncle Charlie, and then we're going to get into some myths and stuff. I have an Uncle Charlie that when I purchased my first house, luckily I didn't talk to him first. When Uncle Charlie, and we all have an Uncle Charlie in our lives, Uncle Charlie told me it's the worst thing you could possibly do is own your own home. You're going to have all kinds of maintenance. The market's going to go terrible. You're going to lose all kinds of money and so on and so forth. And so I am so glad that I didn't talk to Uncle Charlie because I would have never have purchased my first home, and I gave you that example of it. Hey, Don. They all got they're buying the tapes here in a little bit. Okay? That's right. So Uncle Charlie told me real estate is the worst thing in the entire world. He had a great job, okay? And as my life went on, Uncle Charlie's not with us anymore, but when Uncle Charlie passed, he still had the same philosophy and so on and so forth. But he didn't have anything for his children to inherit at all. And no disrespect to Uncle Charlie, he just truly believed that it was just a bad investment, and he was putting his money down. He was the one with the one talent, okay? And Proverbs talks about is a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, okay? So I'm a true believer that we should expand our territory, okay? All right, let's talk about for you people out there that don't own yet, okay? What's the difference between the positives and negatives for owning a property versus renting a property, okay? First of all, 3.5% if you purchase, okay? That's going to be, I recommend that you would get a fixed rate. What that means is when you buy your first house or whatever it might be at this time, you get a 30-year rate, and that's going to be the same payment through the entire 30 years. Okay. If you rent, how many are renting? Has anybody ever gotten a rent increase? Not yet? Trust me, it's coming. For those of us that own properties and rent out, I guarantee you that, how much? 50% in 5 years. That's more than the average, okay? But in the state of California, we did a TransUnion did a research on it, and when they're talking about owning versus renting, your rent will continue to go up. In the state of California, home buyers break even at about 3.3 years, okay, in the state of California. In San Diego, it's about 3.1 years. When you purchase a piece of property, you're going to be paying money up front to get it going, okay? But you have a fixed rate loan, so in San Diego, it takes 3.1 years to be at the break-even point, okay, with the increases of the rent. Rent, typically, we increase rent depending on the vacancy rate. We usually 2-3% per year. So you can see 50% is quite a bit that has gone up. So in the whole country, the average is it only takes 2 years for when you purchased for when it would take for renting to catch up, okay? So, so interesting you would ask that. Let me see if I remember correctly. Now, I wrote this down. From August 15 to August 16, in San Diego, we had a 6.3% increase in the values of property, of real estate, okay? The projection for next year, August 16 to August 17 of August 2017, is 5.3%, okay? Now, that's just a projection, but they're usually pretty good at that. You know, a lot of times because we went through this recession, we're hearing people say, oh, no, 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 look what happened. You know, they went through a bad experience in the real estate. Things don't take off right away. It takes time for things to take off, and they don't stop right away. It's nothing turns on a dime unless something catastrophic happens. Uh-huh. Yes, and within that 1 year period of going up, you're going to have things that are going to be going like this, depending on, you know, I've always looked at it going, well, is this a good time to sell? Is this a good time to buy? And the answer is always yes. Things, you know, Christmas time, holiday times, we do this, and I've closed transactions, you know, on New Year's Eve, you know, I've done, so I've never really looked at it that way. But I hear what you're saying. What actually, in my own experience, is what happened is we had the frenzy effect happening. There's when a house first comes on the market, today's technology is all of you are on the internet and you get the, you know, you get your Zillow calls, you're hooked up with a realtor, and all of a sudden you get a hit and something's, you know, on the market. You've been looking in that area, and all of a sudden instantly you run over there. And it has been my opinion, and not you know, specific to you at all, is that if it's properly priced, even right now, you will have multiple offers on the property. The problem that we've had a lot of times, not specific, is that the values are going up, and people get involved with we'll talk about it a little bit later, but maybe an agent that wants to get your listing per se, and they say, hey, we can get this for it, no problem. They put it on the market for overpriced, okay? And people are pretty good on what the value of something should be. The comps are out there. They put it on for overpriced, and then what happens is it sits there, they get no offers, and then it becomes what I call a stagnant listing. Something that's been sitting there for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and all of a sudden people are figuring there's something wrong, and they're just checking out the new ones that are coming out on the market. And then it's a worn listing, and it's hard to bring them down to the values of where it should have been to begin with. And again, us Christians, we do the same thing. We all want the most we can get out of when we're selling something, right? And a lot of times we want over what that is, and that's why you got to have some good advice when you're selling. You need to have an equally yoked realtor, somebody that is not selling ice to an Eskimo, if you know what I'm saying. Ice is nice, solid, good rock, but it melts. And so you need to get some good, solid advice, because most of the time, if you put it on properly priced, we're still getting multiple offers. And I know with my buyers, when they come on right away, usually we're competing if they're properly priced. But usually when we're competing to purchase a place, there's multiple offers in there. So it has a lot to do with inventory, and inventory is down. It's still down. It's interesting. Sales have actually slowed up, but prices have actually still increased. So you're thinking, well, how does that happen? That means that the sales that are going through are a higher price, but there's more inventory out there. So things have slowed down, but the median price has actually gone up. Now, there'll be a time where it's going to slow down. As soon as they put interest rates up, it'll slow down. But it's not a matter of all of a sudden stopping. What that means is you have a lot of people that have been on the fence jump in and purchase the properties because they've been waiting, and all of a sudden something goes against them like the interest rate, and they're going, we better do it now before things get, way out of hand. Historically, I can't believe I'm not that old, but historically, in election year, they don't move interest rates at all, historically, or very, very little, if anything. So they don't want the Fed to be accused of favoring one candidate or one party over the other with stimulating the economy for one more than the other. So that's historically. So after the election, interest rates are going to go down more. Or probably not. They've been waiting to put them up. But when they increase them, it's only like 0.25%, another 0.25% here and there. They're not messing. They don't want another recession or anything. All right, so the increases in rent versus purchasing property. Another thing about purchasing property is that if you are renting, you virtually have no write-offs. Okay? Anybody renting out there? You guys writing off any of your rent or anything? Yeah. So what happens is that money's just going to whoever owns that property. And if you purchase, then I want to make sure I'm very clear on this so you can understand the benefit of it. When you purchase a piece of property, okay, and you're paying that interest rate is a write-off against what you're making on your job, your daily job, okay? You also can write off what the taxes are, the property taxes on the property that you live in. If you have a rental that you're renting out, you not only write off those two things, you depreciate the property, which means the way the IRS system is set up is that you can take a value of a property and they're saying that value is going down, so you depreciate that against your normal income. Now, we all know typically that properties are going up in value, but the way the IRS system is set up is that you get to, it's like a car that loses its value, whereas a house isn't really losing its value, but you get to act like it does and take that off on your taxes and such. Now, I'm always been, and any maintenance monies that you put into one of your rentals, that's all a write-off, complete on. But then again, your income that you're bringing in is, of course, that's income to you. So if I have a first-time buyer, I want to explain to them, you're making money and you're paying taxes. Okay? When you purchase a property, you're still not going to be keeping that money. You have to pay that money out. It's either going to go to the IRS, to Uncle Sam, okay, just for being a good citizen, and we're all supposed to do that, right? Giving to Caesar what is Caesar's, or you can actually voluntary for everybody, or you can be paying that money towards your mortgage. Okay, it still leaves you, but at least when you're going to that mortgage and you get to write that off, at least you're in a situation that you get to own something for doing that. It's either building credit. You either give it to Uncle Sam, which is not a bad thing, or you can put it into your own account, but the money still has to leave you. Another thing is if you own a property and it's owner-occupied, all right, and if you live there for 2 years, when you sell, a single person gets $250,000 tax-free. You pay no income tax on any of the increase for $250,000. If you're married, for us happy married guys, it's $500,000 increase. Okay? Profit. Any increase. Now, what I mean by that is you purchase a I'll use some small figures. You purchase a house for $100,000, okay? You sell it for $600,000. No tax. Got it? I don't know about any deals out there that we can do that for you, but that's the deal. That went through in the Clinton years. A lot of people were asking me, it used to be before that, is you could take up to $125,000 and you went from owner-occupied house and you sold that house and moved to another house all the way until you were 55 years old, and you could take at one time $125,000. And believe it or not, Bill Clinton changed that in 1996 to help out the farmers, because the farmers would inherit a property. The kids would. They go to sell it, and they have all these taxes to pay. So what they did is they created that law for farmers, but all the rest of us get to use that same law for owner-occupied properties. Every 2 years, yes. So that's owner-occupied, and LLC is not owner-occupied by definition. It means you're a limited partner. It's like a corporation, so that's not for corporations. That's not for ones that you rent out. So LLCs, a lot of people will want to protect themselves. So it's usually in a rental situation. Because in your own home, there's laws, there's homestead laws and so on and so forth that you're protected up against creditors and stuff in your own property. 1031 tax exchange is for non-owner occupied property. And all that is that you own a property and you've been renting it out for years, and then you want to sell it. Instead of paying taxes on it, you can exchange it into a new property if you choose to purchase another property. And what all that does is it defers taxes, so you're going to pay them later on. You can do 157,000 1031 tax exchange. So there is no limit on it. But what happens is there's a thing called boot, and we won't get into that, but you have to at least buy another property for the same amount you sold your last one for, or $1 more. Okay? If you sell it for less, then you have to pay taxes on the difference of whatever your gain is. Okay? For whatever percent. It has to be like kind. So that's why I said non-owner occupied, like income property. But interesting you say that. Like kind would be, I have actually done 1031 tax exchange from apartments to vacant land. But the vacant land it was industrial vacant land, so it had an income. So therefore that by definition is like kind property. A lot of times you might think it has to be a house for a house or a house for a commercial. So it's by definition of income property. Okay? But you can't exchange an apartment building into vacant land that has no income to it. That would not qualify by definition. Okay. I talked about Uncle Charlie, right? Okay, let's talk about myths versus truths. And I'm going to do this really quick. The first step for looking at a house is what? Zillow? Beautiful. How about Redfin or whatever? So it's amazing. The first step is, because you all know what the properties are going for in your area, right? You pull out your tablet, you pull out your phone, whatever, we all know what it is, right? Okay? So I always recommend you don't do that. You get too much information, and it's usually you're going, oh, shoot, I can never do it. Everything is too expensive. First thing that I would recommend that you do is go find out, what do you qualify for? What does it really mean? And us as men, when I talk to couples, usually the men are going, we don't make enough money, and we do this, and I'm going, well, have you asked a mortgage guy? Well, no, but I know that I don't think it's. And the thing about it is us guys sometimes we don't want to have information. We're afraid of information. Information is wonderful. To know that you can't do something is great information. Don't you think? It's not a mystery line. It's not that anymore. So we've got some great mortgage lenders out there. Granite Mortgage is Jeff Merritt. He actually goes to our church, and he's a great mortgage loan broker. You can make a phone call, and it should not take them very long. You tell them what you make. You have to verify these things, of course, right? But just tell him what you make. He'll ask you about a credit history, what you've been doing, and so on and so forth, and he'll tell you exactly what you can qualify for. Now you have that means or what I can qualify for. And the second thing is you have to decide, well, do I want to pay something do I want to buy something that much? I feel more comfortable about this type of a payment. So then Jeff is going to tell you, well, this is the amount of house that you can buy. And you can say, well, this is the amount of house that I feel comfortable with. And then you can go to a experienced real estate broker, give them that, and you're looking at properties that you can actually purchase, not the ones that you would like to purchase, okay? And I don't recommend that you start out with the nicest house in the neighborhood. You should probably start with something that is, you know, within your means. Right, right. So you get yourself qualified, all right, and you get yourself a good realtor, and then let's just talk about that loan thing. 30-year fixed mortgage, that's what I would recommend right now. There's some, if you're able to do that, that's great. There's also a 15-year mortgage, and what that does is it's a lower interest rate. So right now, give or take, it's 3.5% for a 30-year fixed. You can get a 15-year fixed for 2 3/4. Your payment is more, but you're less interest on the money that you're using, and you're also paying it off in half the time. Okay, I would not suggest any type of a adjustable rate interest stuff. It comes back and bites you. You know, when they start adjusting it up to what the real interest rates are, your payments go up, and a lot of people get caught unaware in that. So you understand the difference between the 30 and the 15-year. Another thing is, a lot of times you say, well, Jim, I want the 30-year mortgage. I feel more comfortable with that amount of payment. I always suggest that people pay more than the principal pay, than what their payment is. Give them a little bit more principal pay down. Let's say your payment was $2,000 a month. Okay, God willing, things come up. Instead of going out and you're making more money, I would suggest you start paying $2,200, $2,400, $2,500 a month if you're able to do it at the time. You're able to cut down that principal, which means you pay that additional principal down. Now you're paying less interest on the next payment. More of your money is going toward the principal reduction. And one of the myths that I want to talk about and the mistakes that us men have made in the past, for ones that have purchased properties and values went up, interest rates were down, it's a frenzy buy out there. You can sell your houses for a lot of money. Well, a lot of people are going, oh, look at this, and they refinance. They've been so good at making their payment, and they've got all this equity. They go out and refinance and pull the monies out of the property and go spend it on something. I have been involved with flipping. They call it flipping now. For when I first started doing it, it was called fixer-uppers. I would buy them at the trustee sales and such. And so we had a product to actually fix a house up and turn around and sell it. Okay, now they're calling it flipping, and you see it on the TVs and all that. So we were doing that back in the 80s and 90s and 2000. I've done over 100 of them. And one thing is in common with the house. So the way we were picking them up is there would be foreclosures. Okay, so a foreclosure is going to go to an auction block downtown, and you don't know anything about the people that are in the property at all. That's just going on in the auction because they were not making their payments. Okay, whatever the situation might be. So we'd go to the auctions, but we'd always do the drive-by, analyze what the property might be worth, so on and so forth. And there was a time we're going past these properties, and 8 out of 10 had a brand new motorhome parked in the driveway. They would have brand new dune buggies. They would have trailers. I mean, all the toys. And you know what they did? They went out, refinanced, pulled money out, and they bought their toys, and then the market didn't continue to go up like they thought, and so they're making this payment, and so they let their houses go through foreclosure. So, again, we want to create wealth. We don't want to spend our wealth. You want to create it until you're in a situation that you can pull some of that out, and you're not putting yourself in a negative situation at all. Okay, the goal is that we have no debt to anyone. Okay, I'm a firm believer of if we can, we buy our cars for cash. Okay, I'm a firm believer that the only thing that I borrow on is going to be something that goes up in value, which, in my opinion, is real estate. Okay, so then if it goes up in value, I want to pay that off. How about a retirement plan that looks like this? You own 10 pieces of property free and clear. They're creating income for you. You're living in one. They're creating income for you, and you're not having to work anymore. You have a tangible asset that's going up in value over the years, creating income from that, and then when you die, you're going to give it all to your children's children. It's going to go to your children's children. Okay? Now let me get, I didn't realize how, we're almost out of time. Any questions? Down payment. Buy versus build. To build, so I'm a builder. So to build, you have to buy land. Typically, financing for land is still difficult even now. You can go to your own lender, but most of the time they want you to put 50% down on the land, and then you have to put together the amount to do the construction loan for building out. Unless, of course, you have all cash. All cash is a great deal. So we'd have to talk about contractors and all that. Are you a contractor? Would you build yourself? Yeah. Yeah. So the difficult thing right now is to buy land. We've had a great market going up in value, and all the builders are out looking for more land. There's profit involved, but it's starting to cost us a lot more money to build houses. The reason being is because everybody's busy. When everybody's busy, they charge more, and that's what's happening. So.
How difficult is it in this county to buy discounted property
So it's a overest profit causes ruinish competition. Did you hear that? Overish profit, making too much money, causes ruinish competition. When I was telling you I was buying foreclosures and fixtures and so on and so forth, there was only 7 of us in San Diego. Typically, they were all going down there, we all knew each other, so on and so forth. So that's all that was really going on for a certain period of time. And then people started coming down from LA. Profits were happening an awful lot. Now you have a whole bunch of people chasing down properties with the example of what you just said. The problem is now, there was a time when you would put a house, I might tell someone, don't make a payment on your house. As soon as you get the letter, we'll call it in foreclosure. Everybody will want to buy it, and you'll get more money for it because foreclosures are always good deals. Yeah. So the idea is, right now, people are chasing down properties to fix up. There's a lot of flippers, and they're doing nice flippers. It used to be in the past we would just paint and carpet and such. Now you got to have granite, and they're doing them nice. It's a specialty. It's a specialty. And I know a lot of people that do them and stuff, but it's a specialty. So it's difficult, not to be negative, but it's difficult because you have a lot of people chasing them down, and there's not that much profit out or a product out there, houses to buy. Conglomerate going in together? So when I was a kid, let me see, I bought them with my sister Sandy, my brother Donnie, my brother Ricky. So I always, and then of course I've had partners through the years purchasing when I didn't, so it's a great idea. Partnerships. Anybody have had argument with your wife lately? Bunch of dishonest. That's the closest partnership you're ever going to have. And if you're having an argument with the missus, you got to realize we got a business situation with people. You got to make sure you're equally yoked. Partnerships, I've seen a lot of them go good. Nothing wrong with them, but a lot of them, you find out, so it to be very clear, amounts, who owns what's our goal, whether it's going to happen in the future, and that's it. But they're great instruments. You just got to make sure you're equally yoked.
So 2 questions. You did talk more about FHA, and then also with retirements with employee matching funds. I don't know if you're able to take from those for a down payment on a house.
Yes. Let me answer that real quick. And so FHA is 3.5% down, okay? But you have to pay insurance, mortgage insurance on that, okay? VA, what's that called? FHA is a government-insured loan, and you're the one paying the insurance on it. VA is government-guaranteed loan. If you're a veteran, you can purchase a property for no money down, and the government gives a guarantee to the lender that you're going to make that payment, so you don't pay that mortgage insurance on that, okay? You can borrow. There's different tax laws. I can talk to you a little bit later on that. It depends on what it's a 401k or IRA, or so they have different definitions. Most of the time you can use them. A lot of times you might have to pay some type of a penalty on it. But I want you to know the lenders out there, so you can put, here's the ideal, 20% down, you get a loan with no PMI, no insurance on it at all. And that's the best thing to do. It's just hard to achieve sometimes to put 20% down. That's the biggest problem. I just closed a transaction for a condo on Madison in San Diego, okay? $250,000, and my client is a millennial. He's Demi's age, so 25 years old, okay? Buying it with his girlfriend, and he got a grant to purchase in San Diego. They paid his entire they paid $11,000 they gave him as a grant that he does not have to pay back. And they just closed, they moved in. Now, I'll give you the lender's name, Ignacio is his name. And that lender did the deal, and then they go after the grant money. They get recouped on it. They did everything up front for him. The only thing he had to do is come up with his closing cost, and his parents fronted him that. So, an example of the loans that are out there. I don't understand it, but it's a good deal. I'm sorry, Nathan.
Just wondering where you see the city expanding and opportunities for purchasing and investment, next 5, 10, 20 years.
So let me just tell you, I have some statistics. I'm gonna just bark them out. Well, here's some facts. So the millennials, anybody us older generation, a lot of our children still live at home in their 20s. Okay, they're in that the generation that they're sticking around, staying at home, and the reason being is because they know more than all the rest of us. And but it's interesting. They are expecting the millennials. There's going to be 17 million first-time buyers in the next 5 years, and that's mainly that generation. Okay, Sanders used to be our mayor. He said we have a lack of homes in San Diego. So the builders are, the value of land's up. The builder, we're trying to build them. So we're going to have a demand for housing. So therefore, if you have less of a supply, more of a demand, in theory, prices will continue to go up. So I'm not a pessimistic point of view. Even in, let me give you the scenario of if I knew everything, I would have sold everything I had in about 2007. And I would have bought it back, and I would have rented. And I would have bought it back in 2011, 2012, whatever. It's all a good deal. But you see, but if you have rentals out there or whatever, I'm going to give you an example of my niece and nephew. If you just have income coming in, you have a proper mortgage, you can go through those whole time because rents never went down through the recession because everybody needs someplace to live. Even a homeless person has to choose where he's going to be going that night, okay? So that's one of the beauties. All of us have to live someplace. Okay? I'm going to give you an example real quick about the recession. My niece and nephew purchased their house in Santee in August of 2000. And I might be wrong on the month, but you'll get the concept. August of 2005 for $460,000. That house went up in value for a little bit, and then they got hit with the recession. Okay, so through that whole time, it was like terrible, terrible, terrible. Well, we just sold their house for $480,000. They didn't do a short sale. When we could talk about short sales, we're out of time. They didn't do any of those things or anything like that, and now the values in Santee, not fixed up, are back up higher than what they purchased at before the recession. So you see what I'm saying? Now all of a sudden they're up higher and climbing. And any more questions? I do. For stocks, you mean? Yeah, and it used to be 10, and then it went to less, and then we had it was like a 12-year expansion. So do I see the stock market? Let me tell you something. I've lost money in real estate. Okay, speculating, but not much. I've lost a lot of money in the stock market. So the real estate market is going to be predicated. Well, we got a supply-demand thing. This is going to, you have to live someplace. Okay, as interest rates go up, the real estate market will slow down. But you'll still, if we're looking at what the past did, see things changed, but not very much. You can look at old charts and so on and so forth. They're doing the same thing. Interest rates will slow down the market. Inflation, once they put the interest rate up because of inflation, will slow down the market. The thing is if you get into a solid real estate investment, you'll have rent coming in, and you can weather through all of that. Stock market, I have no clue. I mean, I do, but it would mean nothing. I do real estate for 36 years, and I've lost money in the stock market for 20-something.
Your final recommendation is there's not really, I mean, there is good times to buy and there's bad times to buy, but if you had the means and you were comfortable and moving from rental to purchasing, whenever that's a possibility, you would probably recommend.
I would recommend that you purchase a property now, if not sooner. We're going to continue to go up. Things don't change. Now, again, I'm an optimistic guy, but I can tell you we're going to get another, in my opinion, we're going to get another 2, 3, 4 years of push going up. Okay? I call it the elevator. You can buy whatever you want at whatever level. Now you're on the elevator. Okay? All the houses are going up, but at least yours is too. So when you have a change in the family, you make babies, you have somebody move in, you do this, you do that, whatever it is, and you have to sell and buy something else, at least you're at a level now you can sell, and the other house has gone up in value also, but you're buying you're not starting out the bottom and paying more. So that would be my recommendation.
I'm a retired builder. Built homes, built condos. Retired. Maybe close to $1 million in equity. No mortgage.
Uh-huh.
A lot of cash. Would you suggest flipping? Building?
So here's the thing. Again, what I said was you have a lot of people looking for the flippers. It is amazing. You put something on TV, and everybody wants to do flippers. And they're pretty easy. Did you know it's on TV? That's pretty easy. But if you've got people in place and you're able to see in every market, you just keep looking, you keep looking, keep looking. I'm on the MLS. I have my buyers and my sellers, my clients, but I'm also a player. Remember, I purchase, I do stuff. I buy land, I split it down, we build out, so on and so forth. So I'm always looking. There's always something that comes up. It always does. And this is foreclosures. The problem with foreclosures is this. When we went through the recession, you had the bailout. And what the bailout was is that you had foreclosures that were coming online. The lenders would sell them for a lot less than what was owed. And the reason why they were doing that is because they were getting Bush or Obama money in the backside, so they weren't losing money. We as buyers could purchase something we call a product. You're purchasing the house for a lot less money, so now you could actually fix it up and make it a profit on it and so on and so forth. So we had product then to purchase. The bailout is done. So any lender that is foreclosing on a property has real monies involved, and so they have to get real monies out. So when they put a foreclosure back on the market, it is maybe $5,000 under market, maybe $10,000 if it's a real bad one. So we're not like purchasing for $50,000 to $60,000 under market anymore. Short sales. Okay, short sales is the exact same situation. You don't see very many short sales anymore either. The reason being is because there isn't any bailout money. When people were doing the lenders were doing short sales, they would sell the property short and receive Obama money back. So they weren't really losing that money. So now when they're doing a short sale, you can't go in and purchase them for $50,000, $60,000 less. They have they hire me, they pay me $150 to just tell them what I think it's worth without even looking at the property. It's called a broker's price opinion. And so they're doing that so they know that they're not getting one person's opinion that's trying to sell it. They get other people. And so there's not as many of those out there now. But you can still look for diligence. There's things that come up. You just have to search and look underneath.